Chapter 3. Pre-operation inspections. Before beginning operation, the first question you should ask is it safe to operate? To help answer this question, pre-operation inspections are used. In this chapter, we will discuss common worksite hazards to be aware of during site inspections and the requirements for walk-around inspections. Inspecting the worksite. One of the main pre-operation inspections is the site inspection. During site inspections, you will look for any conditions that may have changed, safety issues, and hazards. Then, you will make plans to eliminate the hazard if possible, or minimize the hazard to an acceptable level. We will now cover some examples of hazards to look for during your site inspection. Overhead hazards. Overhead hazards can include any form of obstruction, from doorways when working indoors to power lines when working outdoors. Power lines represent a particularly high-risk overhead hazard, as contact with power lines can result in electrocution and death. Therefore, to properly control the hazard power lines present, you must know the location of overhead lines in the area at all times, use extreme caution, and never approach power lines with any part of your machine unless all local regulations and all on-site safety precautions have been met. This includes never getting within 7 meters of a power line that's voltage is unknown. Keep in mind when implementing hazard controls for any overhead hazard that it's important to be aware of the attachment clearances of your machine. That way, you remain aware of how much space is required to avoid overhead obstructions and can avoid contact. Ground hazards. In addition to overhead hazards, your worksite may also contain surface level and underground hazards. It's important that you know the surface and ground conditions of each area your machine will be operating in as to avoid hazards on and below the surface, particularly when working in excavations. Be aware of such hazards as narrow doors, ramps or loading docks, high traffic areas, slippery sections, rough working surfaces, and potholes and trenches. You will also want to ensure that you have full visibility at all times, so look out for blind corners and poorly lit areas. If this is not possible, use caution and ensure your path is clear ahead of time. If you will be working around other ground personnel, ensure they know when you are operating in the area. Finally, if you'll be digging with your machine, it's also crucial to check the location for any underground facilities, including cables, gas lines, water lines, and drains. Damaging any form of underground facility can result in serious consequences, including fines, loss of essential public services, damage to your machine, injury to other personnel and yourself, and even death. Atmospheric hazards. Exhaust fumes from diesel, gasoline, or LP gas engines contain odorless, invisible gases, such as carbon monoxide, that can poison and kill you without warning. When an engine is running in an enclosed area, fresh air must be added to avoid concentration of exhaust fumes and vent the exhaust outside. Always ensure there is adequate ventilation. You must also ensure you never use the machine in an atmosphere that contains explosive gas. This is because engines may have hot parts and hot exhaust gas that, when combined with flammable material, may cause an explosion. Indoor hazards. When operating inside a building, you may encounter many of the hazards we've previously mentioned, with the added hazard of working in a confined space. Therefore, when operating indoors, you must know the weight limitations of the building floor, your clearances, and your company's confined space requirements. Additionally, you will need to plan your travel routes ahead of time. Safe operators always know 3 to 4 moves ahead, including what they need to pick up, where they have to move material, and how they will deposit the load. Inspecting the machine. Once you've inspected your work site and eliminated or controlled all hazards, you must inspect your machine before mounting it or starting the engine. Doing a walk-around inspection of your machine is a sign of a safe operator and is required by OH&S standards. Your walk-around inspection should start where you would normally get on the machine. As you work your way around your machine, you must check for any defects that may affect the safety of yourself or others. The following items must be checked. Bucket. Bucket steps. Front lights for function. Tilt cylinder for function. Auxiliary hydraulic lines. Lift arms and cylinder pivot pins. Tires and wheels. Flags. All fluids, including engine fuel, oil, and hydraulic or hydrostatic fluid, to ensure their levels are correct. Cooling system. Safety signs for legibility. The rollover protective structure. The falling object protective structure. Safety tread. Grab handles. Safety belts and seat bar for function. All gauges and instruments to ensure pressures are correct and that information is displaying properly. Mirrors. Windows for clear visibility. Windshield wipers for function. The horn for function. The backup beeper for function. The parking brake for function. The main brakes for function. Steering for function, and the neutral safety switch for function. As you inspect, keep an eye out for any loose or broken parts. If any are found, record what you found and report it to your supervisor. Do not put the machine in service until it is 100% operational. Additionally, if modified or malfunctioning safety systems are discovered, the machine must be immediately taken out of service until repaired or replaced. Under no circumstances should anyone operate equipment in which safety systems have been modified or are not working properly. All walk-around inspections should be documented. You are required to produce hard copies of your inspection records if requested by your supervisor or an OH&S officer.